Dominic Bruno. I'm the Assistant General Manager at River Garden Farms. River Garden Farms is a 15,000 acre diversified farming operation in northern Yolo and southern Colusa counties. And right now we're at River Garden's walnut orchards, kind of in the middle, it's southern Colusa County. River Garden Farms has been planting cover crops for this is our 4th season. Originally we started sort of with the goal of increased nitrogen fixation and fertilizer benefits, and it sort of shifted quickly to more of a organic matter improvement and water infiltration and rainwater infiltration in the orchards and in problem areas. With healthy soils, which was part of our early adoption, a project with the Audubon, we did cover crops in rice fields, and we've done some cover crops in other areas, but our focus has really shifted towards the orchards and the benefits that we're seeing here. Cover cropping at River Garden Farms in the walnuts is a post-harvest activity for us, and we've been planting our cover crops. We'd like to start in October when we finish our Howards as soon as we can, but it's gone as late as December and January because of weather or just operational constraints. We use a no-till drill, and we plant the middles, single pass on most of our blocks. We've experimented with planting width and depth and some different things, but pretty much operationally it works well for us to do a 10-foot width. The crop's allowed to grow. If it doesn't rain or if we plant dry, we'll sprinkle, and we'll try to get the crop going in the fall. It's allowed to grow depending on the species that we plant. Sort of has some impact on when we terminate in the spring, and termination is typically been accomplished with a single pass with just a flail mower. Sometimes it's actually all cleaned up by the time we do a second pass, but that's been our practice.
Morning, my name's Tom Johnson. I work for Camprass Seed Company from Manteca, California, a wholesale seed company that specializes in cover crop and range seeding. So we deal with a lot of that type of thing. I've been dealing with cover crops for over 23 years now, so I can't say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot of combinations and a lot of plantings, failures more often than not, because that's what I get called out for. And we blended the seed here for Dominic's operation at River Garden Farms, and it's a blend of large and small seeds, so that's part of why we're talking about calibration today, is how important that can be when dealing with mixtures.
You have X amount of planted acres of trees, but you're not necessarily going to be putting seed on all those acres. So it's important to know your planting width and your tree width and how wide your band is going to be. So we plant typically around 30% of our acres. So we'll have 100 planted acres, we'll plant 33 cover crop acres. So we'll order seed for that accordingly.
What Dominic has out here is a 10-foot wide planting width, Great Plains manufactured no-till seed drill. Basically, they've got a grain seed box, a small seed box, and a native seed box. Seed box, in other words, what holds the seed before it's distributed back down to the ground on a frame. It's pretty much just a grain planter that's had some extra frills put to it, basically.
We've lowered the drill down so we can look at some of the finer details of the whole thing. This fluted cylinder is copied in there, is just larger inside the silver thing that handles the larger seed. This basically controls how wide this is right here, which is how we affect our distribution. Right now this small seed box is shut completely off. So these would slide this way according to this handle, like so. That's one of your adjustments that you have on these types of drills, is how far open that is. One of the important things with these fluted cups like this is if you're using large seed, that your gateway, what I refer to the gateway is how much flute is showing through the cup, is open big enough that you're not breaking seeds. You may be able to calibrate it and get all the small seed out, but if the big seed's getting stuck in there, it's getting broken and it won't germinate. So we'll close that back up again like it was. It's a no-till drill, so in other words, we don't have to do any soil prep, and we can work in some pretty tough situations. There's the ability to increase down pressure, so in other words, to make the wavy coulter that's slicing the surface tension of the soil ahead of the openers more or less. We can adjust how deep we're putting our seed, basically by this wheel down here in the back, which is also what they call the closing wheel. So as it rolls along, it's closing the furrow over the seed. In front of that is the seed coulters, which are two flat disc plates pretty much at an angle that are going around, opening a V in the soil, the seed's dropping just behind where the opening is. In front of that is the wavy coulter I was talking about that cracks the soil so that that can go in the ground. A regular grain drill doesn't necessarily have the coulters on it. We're up on top. We're looking at the main seed box that our cover crop seed is in. It's a mixture of faba beans, peas, vetch, a small grain, and a couple of clovers. Pretty diverse mix, probably more diverse than a lot of what we put out in these things, but as programs evolve on cover cropping, they find things that work, find things that don't. That's part of the process. As we've mentioned, this particular planter has 3 seed boxes. So we have the main seed box, which would be equivalent to a grain drill. And then we have a small native seed box, which has special agitators in it to keep things from bridging up in there. And then the back box here is the small seed box. Holds less, it's small seed. You want more control over that type of thing anyways. In this case, all we need is the front box. There are a few Great Plains models and quite a few of the other planters out there basically only have one box to choose from. It's a choice. They're not necessarily custom made, but they are made kind of to order. And down in the bottom down there is the fluted wheel we were talking about that dribbles out the seed. This Great Plains has what we call a gearbox. In other words, it has 3 or 4 different speeds. They're ground driven, but you can change how fast the fluted cup is going around by changing the gears as well. So not only do you have how open it is, but you can also adjust how fast it's going around, how fast it's metering seed out. This is the only ones I know that have gearboxes. I haven't played with a crust buster yet, but a John Deere grain drill is basically just a John Deere grain drill. It goes the same speed all the time, no matter what. The Schmeisers and other vineyard drills like that, the old Ag Pros and stuff like that, all basically were whatever the drive was. You could change the sprockets if you wanted to, but you couldn't do it easily on the fly. You basically had to tear it apart to do it all over again. This one's kind of like when you're calibrating it and you're going, okay, well, I'm not putting out nearly enough and I don't want to open the cup anymore. You could speed how fast the cup up, how fast the cup's going around by changing up, gearing up. It's just like gears in a car. First gear is pretty slow, second gear is about the middle, third gear is really fast. Most of the time you're using second or first gear. Not always, but most of the time.
My preferred calibration method for these drills is a catch method. And so it starts by disconnecting 3 or as many as you want of the drop tubes. And in this mix, we're just using the big seed box, so we just need to do 1 tube. Disconnect it.
Okay, you need me to crank?
Not yet.
Not yet.
And then put something, a coffee can. I use these little bags. Anything will work to catch your seed. If you were going from an empty seed box and doing it for the first time, you'd want to crank the drill a few times to make sure that your flutes were full and that there was seed dropping down, and before you put the bags on. But we know that this thing's been planting already, so everything should be charged and ready to go.
Crank forward.
And then we're going to crank forward 41 times, which is 1/10 of an acre with this drill.
41, huh?
41. So now we've got our 1/10 of an acre crank and 3 different flutes. And we'll weigh our seed. £2 pounds, 9 ounces. So we know we're gonna be a little bit heavy right now because I was running 2 less tubes until yesterday and I didn't recalibrate. It's important to know we have 15 openers or 15 tubes dropping. We caught 3. We came out with a total of 2 pounds and 9 ounces in 1/10 of an acre. So we're gonna divide that by 3 so we get an average for each tube, which is 13.6 ounces per tube in 1/10 of an acre.
So that'd be 130
pounds. So we're a little bit rich because I was planting with 2 less tubes until yesterday afternoon. So we'll need to turn down a little bit. Our target with this mix and this planting this year is 100 pounds.
So right now we're putting out a little heavy, but you have to keep an eye on, okay, I know I have 1,000 pounds out there on the skid and he's supposed to plant X number of acres with that. And he comes back in and says, I got leftover or I ran out. It's like, okay, something's wrong. You want to go less than 100 acres to find that out.
In our calibration, we were a little bit heavy, 130 pounds per acre with a 100-pound target. This lever here is going to adjust the amount of opening that we have on our flutes, the amount of seed that's being allowed to drop down per turn. So we're going to close it. I think the manual recommended just for peas was going to be somewhere between 40 and 45 to fit 100 pounds. So we're going to go ahead and move it a couple of notches. Let's see where that lands us. So we ran the catch and we were a little heavy, and then we've made the adjustment. We've turned the flutes down a little bit, and we're going to do a catch again to double check our work or see how accurate we are. We're ready. No, we're at the same. So we need to make a little more of an adjustment.
Another one of the little tricks is remember to put the feed tubes back on.
Okay. That worked. We have made a difference. Yeah. So that time it did go down. We got 2 pounds, 3 ounces. We're getting 2 pounds, 9 ounces before 11.7. So yeah, 110 pounds. So could go down a little further. So after the 3rd adjustment, we got our catch pretty close to the 100-pound target, and now we're ready to start planting again. So now we're reattaching the drop tubes, which, depending on how cold it is outside, can be a challenging task. I've got my snap ring pliers, but any set of channel locks or pliers will work. These just seem to make pretty easy work of it. Depending on the conditions, and right now we're working in some pretty wet conditions, what we're doing right now, having the tubes plug up, it's important that the operator stops every turn or every 4 turns or something like that and just gets out and makes sure that he's getting some drop out of each of the openers. So anytime we change seed mix or change planting width, for example, yesterday we were dropping 13 tubes and today we went to 15 because we changed blocks. You know, it's important to recalibrate and check, and as you see, as we found, you know, making those changes, we were dropping quite a bit more seed than we had anticipated or calibrated for yesterday. Now that we've finished calibrating the drill, the operator's taken off and he's going to start making passes again, and we know with pretty good certainty that we're going to be putting down the right amount of seed that we had intended, and hoping for good cover crop results this year.